So I have a theory on why so many people are texting and driving. It's such a bad habit, and I think it's leading to a lot more incidents and accidents, and really, it can really be a bad thing. With technology the way that it's going, the last probably 8 years or so, pretty much everyone has a smartphone, an iPhone. Most people have iPhones, but I think the average person, if you looked at things, took a step back, you'd probably say, you know what, the average person is probably addicted, clinically addicted to their smartphone. I don't think that's much of a stretch, right? If the next time you're on the road and you're going on the freeway, or you're just driving and there's a decent amount of cars on the road, just kind of look over to the car next to you. And I swear, I think at least a third of the people that I look at, they're either, messing with something on their dashboard, like the nav system or whatever, or they're literally looking down at their phone, or they have it literally in front of them and they're on their phone, or they have an older car and they don't have Bluetooth, right? So I see the phone is on their ear and they're talking on it. So that is incredibly dangerous to do. It's no wonder why there's a lot of accidents and fatalities with people on the road. You just think about, what you're actually doing. You're driving like a 3,000 or 4,000 pound vehicle, and you're going 60 miles an hour, and then you're looking down at your phone, and now you can't see what's going on ahead of you. So there's so many accidents that occur because of that, right? People are distracted. They get a text message maybe, or they want to talk to someone, and so they pick up their phone and they're looking at it and they're trying to pay attention to the road at the same time. I don't think most people realize, again, that they're in a 4,000 pound vehicle going 60 miles an hour, and they could do a hell of a lot of destruction in that short amount of time. But I think something needs to be done about it. It's one thing to say we're going to pull you over or something when you're texting, but most police officers don't do that. I haven't gotten pulled over in such a... Well, I actually did get pulled over for being on my phone. It's funny, as hypocritical as that sounds. I almost never go on my phone while I'm driving, but I was in an area that I was not familiar with, and I was trying to go to a motorsports store to pick up a clutch cable, because my clutch cable it broke on me when I was riding my motorcycle a couple of days before doing this. And so I didn't want to miss the turn, and for whatever reason the lady wasn't speaking. She was telling me where to go, but she wasn't doing it quick enough. So she would tell me what to do like almost after it was too late. So I pulled out my phone for like the last little bit, just barely, to look at like what turn I needed to make. And that I realized that probably wasn't very smart, but I just pulled it out for a little bit, and there must have been a police officer right beside me, and he saw me looking down at my phone. And then I pulled into the motorsports shop, and I didn't get a ticket. I was like, oh, hey, I'm sorry. I said, I don't have a GPS on this car, and I was listening to the directions to get to this motorsports place to buy a clutch cable, because my clutch cable went out on my motorcycle the other day. And he was like, yeah, well, that's really dangerous, and I said, hey, I totally agree. I said, obviously I ride motorcycles, and I totally get that. I wouldn't want to be taken out by someone not looking at me, and I'm on a bike, and then all of a sudden I'm crippled or I'm dead, right? And at very least my bike's going to be damaged, and I might be in the hospital. So I said, hey, I usually never do that. I'm not from this area, and I said, hey, I did pull out my phone just at like the very last 1/10 of a mile to make sure I was making the right turn to get into the right place. So that was definitely my bad. And we're all, probably everyone can say at some point they've looked at their phone when they're driving, but I think some people are like chronic abusers of it, or they'll literally be holding on whole conversations and trying to respond to people, while they're actually driving. And it's very bad. they're probably going to do something moving forward. I don't know why that guy wasn't going. They're probably going to do something. See, that guy was probably looking at his phone right there. Did you see how long he was waiting? I thought there might have been a car in front of him, but there wasn't. He was probably looking at his phone or not paying attention. So there you go. But I think they're probably going to do something with phones, like when it senses that you're moving 60 miles an hour, it's probably going to ask you, like, hey, are you operating this vehicle? Because sometimes you're going to be, a passenger, so I guess it's fine to use your phone. But there's probably going to be a day where they say, if you're operating this vehicle, your phone's going to give you a warning message like, hey, you're moving faster than 10 miles an hour or whatever, and we're going to lock out the ability to use your phone if you're driving this vehicle. And I don't really know what else they can do, because I think there's a large percentage of people that are getting in accidents that are using their phone or really not paying attention, and it's distracted driving. As odd as it sounds, manual transmissions require people to pay a lot more attention, because you have to shift the gears and there's obviously another foot pedal involved with the clutch. So I think, with an automatic transmission, it's very easy to just kind of get tuned out and to not really pay attention to what gear you're in, or everything's just very smooth and easy. You put the car in drive, and then that's it. You have the gas pedal and the brake, and that's all you have to do. With the manual transmission, it's more of an interactive experience. So I would think if a higher percentage of cars were manual, there would be less people driving. And it's kind of like not very intuitive. It's counterintuitive. Most people would say, well, automatic transmissions are more safe than manual transmissions, because manual transmissions, you can roll backwards. You have to shift the gears. Not everyone's very good at driving a standard transmission. But at the same time, anyone can jump into an automatic transmission car and then just kind of get on their phone. I still think that to this day, I haven't been in an accident yet, thankfully, in a car or a motorcycle yet, but I still think at some point, because I ride motorcycles a couple, 10,000 miles a year or more, that at some point I'm going to get taken out by someone that is distracted driving, that just doesn't see me or isn't paying attention, and they're on their phone, because they're worried about their social life. And I'm going to be a victim of someone not paying attention. Can't you just see it, though? Like, you're going on a motorcycle, you merge into traffic, the person's looking down, right, at their phone. They don't see you. They're still going 75. And then someone in front of you slows down, and so you slow down as the motorcycle, and they ram right into you. And that could really, that's going to be a bad day. There's nothing you can do about it, right? You're not in a car, you're on a motorcycle. So now your bike's going to go all over the place. And then, your body's going to get flown probably all over the place too. So not enough. I don't know what the driver's ed course is now. When I took it 10 years ago, texting and driving, I think it was addressed maybe a little bit, but there really wasn't smartphones. But it's a big issue. I've just seen so many people that are on their phone or talking on their phone or not looking, or even what I just had to do there. You come to a stoplight and all of a sudden they're looking at their phone again, and they're not paying attention to driving. And so maybe that's why autonomous driving is becoming more popular, because it's like, hey, we don't want humans to do anything. There's a lot of human error and people driving, and they could, instead of spending 2 hours driving and paying attention, they could just get in the car and be taken to their destination. And you can be on your phone and talk to whoever you want, or sleep, and let the technology just drive you wherever you need to go. So maybe that will happen. There's a lot of liability issues with autonomous driving. You can just imagine that someone gets clipped riding a bicycle, or the car doesn't know that there's a non-paved road that's getting worked on, and the system doesn't know that there's an active crew there, and they don't stop, and they just go through them at 60 miles an hour and they kill people, right? I mean, that's going to be the end of autonomous driving right there. So I think you still need human interaction at this point. But again, humans are not perfect in driving, but a lot of that can be reduced by not texting or not looking at your phone. It's one of the worst things to do. And again, I think I know I have done it before, just to look at stuff. I never respond or actively use my phone. But I will say, and I haven't done it, like I said, I did it that one time, but other than that, I very rarely ever look at my phone while I'm driving, because I understand what I'm doing. It's like, hey, you could end up in jail if you like aren't paying attention, and you maybe hit someone that's crosswalking, or you slam into something. I mean, you can go to jail for that, right? So you could really kind of ruin your life for doing that. It's not worth it. But again, so many people are to the point where they are addicted to their phone that they can't put it down even when they're driving a 4,000-pound vehicle at 60 miles an hour. That's how important it is to them. So there should be some regulation on that. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just think it puts so many people at risk that are innocent people that, you know, you hear about it all the time on the news. Someone was texting and driving, or someone was not paying attention, or even like drunk driving. I mean, when you get into a vehicle and you're going on the public roadway and you're going 60, 70 miles an hour, or even 20 or 30 miles an hour, there's so much damage you could do if you're not paying attention, just by running people over or slamming into someone, not to mention just the financial costs it's going to do. And you know, my brother's been like rear-ended a couple times, and he was down in a not so good area. He went down there one time and he got rear-ended, and then the people just took off, you know, because they didn't have insurance. So I don't know what it is. I mean, humans are going to be humans, and they're gonna want to text and drive, and, you know, just kind of not really understand what they're doing. But there has to be some sort of security measure that reduces the amount of people sending, you know, that, hey, you're driving your car, you're going faster than X amount miles per hour, 5 miles an hour, or even 1 mile an hour. You know, your car is moving, so there's not going to be any allowed text messaging. Certain things on this car, for example, on this Honda Accord, you can't change certain settings in here because it will say you need to do it while the car is not moving, right? And they have warning messages up here that warn you, like, hey, you know, don't use any of this while the car is moving, and don't try to change stuff. But I don't think that's enough. I think most people actually need the technology not to work in order for them not to use it, because if the technology still works when they're driving, they're still going to try to do it, and that's going to create a lot of accidents, a lot more deaths, and just a lot more bad situations that can totally be avoided. So that's my take on texting and driving. It's very bad, and, you know, I'm sure anyone that watches this has probably seen accidents that were created because of that. They've heard of accidents on the news that someone was texting and driving and got ran over, or they're in the hospital, or they're dead, or, you know, they caused a huge backup on the interstate. You know, the stories are, you know, there's all sorts of those stories out there. So it's just interesting, because technology, you know, it brings about a lot of good in making everyone's life kind of better in some aspects. But then it also, you know, there's obviously some downsides with it, because people aren't responsible with the technology, and you know, they try to use it when they're in a motor vehicle, and it's just not safe. So maybe you guys have a story on texting and driving. If you do text and drive and you're watching this, I just have to ask you, you know, okay, yes, I have to admit, everyone's probably done it at some point, but if you really think about what you're doing, like, is it really worth it? to even take your eyes off of the road for 1 second? I don't know what message is gonna be worth it for you to stop looking at the road while you're driving a car. Let's say that someone died that I knew let's say like a family member died that I knew, and I got a text message about that. What am I gonna be able to do while I'm driving? I can't do anything. If I want to pull off to the side of the road, it's like, okay, I'm no longer driving this car. I can now look at this message and be able to emotionally respond to it, right? But while I'm driving my vehicle, this is the most important thing right now. I can't think about anything else because I'm driving a car, right? I'm going 40 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour, and I could potentially do a lot of harm to other people if I am not paying attention to what I'm doing. So that's the question that I have for everyone. It's like, I literally don't think there's one thing. Even if someone died, or, someone was saying, oh my God, I've fallen and I can't get up, you need to come back and get me. Okay, maybe you can look at that text message. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but if it's something that important, maybe you have a policy where you're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my hazards on and pull off to the side of the road and look at this text message from my grandmother or from my mother. And it says, Jimmy, I need you to come back home. I've fallen and I can't get up. I need you to take me to the hospital or whatever. Call 911. Okay, then I can do that. But let's say that I look at the message that you've fallen down and you can't get up, and then I all of a sudden swerve into the other lane because my knee hits the wheel and I'm not looking at the road. Now all of a sudden I'm in the hospital or I'm dead. So you need to understand that. It's like, hey, while I'm driving this car, that's all that I should be focused about. Being safe, getting to where I need to go. If I have any other thing that I want to do or want to respond to someone or look at something on my phone, then, use the hands-free technology. Maybe your car has a system where you can hit a button and ask Google, whatever. My car doesn't have that, but I am just every time I go out, I feel like I see so many people on their phones, and especially, like I said, it's concerning being a motorcycle rider, that I really do think that at some point in my life, I'm going to have something bad happen to me because of that. Because there's just so many people out there that are not paying attention to what they're doing, and it's going to be bad. And I would honestly say this, I think a certain amount of people, if it was on a road that there wasn't a lot of traffic and someone just ran into me on a motorcycle, I think they'd just get the hell out of Dodge. I don't even think they'd stop because they know they'd be in a lot of trouble. It's like, hey, why did you hit this guy? He said that he had been stopped and you were coming 60 miles an hour behind him, and that you totally could have stopped, but you just kept going. Oh, well, my car was messing. No. It's like most of the time you were not paying attention. And what were you doing? You were probably looking at your phone or sending some message or looking up some video while you were driving your car. So that's going to be the end of the rant, guys. Again, if you have a story about this, most people do. If you've actually watched this video, I'm sure if you've ridden a motorcycle, you probably have a story about how someone almost killed you, or how you see people on their phone all the time. So let me know that story, because it's scary, and something needs to be done legislation-wise, or maybe on the car manufacturing side, that prohibits you to use your phone. I don't know how they would actually do it, but it's a huge problem, especially with people that are younger, because their phone is always at their side, even when they're driving. So, that's the end of the rant, guys. Please don't use your phone and drive, or if you're going to look at it, just try to pull off to the side of the road and just make sure that it's safe. So that's the end of the video. Subscribe if you're new, and give the video a like, and we'll see you on the next one.